Hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you. Super stoked today to have a true rebel with us. I don't often have rebels on the show because I don't want them to conflict with my being a rebel. But I do have one today, and it's actually Rebel Girl Marketing. And Lisa Raebel, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Dave?
I'm good. Thanks for hanging out with us a little bit. So I gotta ask the question, which everybody's like, what? So tell me about Rebel Girl Marketing, where you came up with the name, how that whole thing started.
So when any entrepreneur wants to start a business, they always start with a basic concept and where they think it might go. And so then you want to go, okay, well, with that, how should I name the business? So based on the fact that I didn't want to use my regular name and I wanted to be on the creative aspect, I wanted a name that was going to be more interesting than Lisa Raebel Marketing. And so I probably went through 25 names.
Okay.
I'm not exaggerating, like 25 names. I would Google it, somebody already had it, or I'd ask somebody, they say that was kind of silly. So I'm literally driving down 94, right by the Moreland exit. I'm talking, every time I drive by, I think of this, is that all of a sudden Rebel Girl just popped in my head. Don't ask me why. I was trying to think I could play off my last name, Raebel, sure. Rebel. My brother-in-law calls me Rebel all the time, and so I thought, oh, that's perfect. So I took it out for a spin with some people that in my knit group, and I was going to call it Rebel Woman. That sounded a little too whatever. And so I started with Rebel Girl, and so it just stuck, and I've got really, really positive feedback with it because it's a fun name, it's a memorable name, and it reminds me to stay authentic and unique in my marketing approach.
Awesome. Well, that's so cool. Well, thank you again for hanging out with us. And anytime I see a founder of a company, I love to unpack it with them. And you call yourself that, I call myself that. There's also another piece to that where, excuse me, it's chief storyteller. So what does that have to do with being an entrepreneur? Where does that fit in your daily life?
Well, marketing is storytelling these days. The transition of marketing that's happened over the past 25 years, which there's been just a little, right? So think about the way that people buy over the past 25, 30 years, back in the early 90s, the late 80s, it was the vets, that generation that bought, it was kind of like features and benefits, right? Like sure. Just facts, ma'am. Just tell me what it is, how much it costs, and then how fast you can get it to me.
Sure.
And then we went into the next generation, which is the baby boomers. It was more of a price war back then. It was kind of like, how much can I get for as little as I possibly can get? And then you went into the next generation, and the marketing message was always like, we're the best. We're number one. We're awesome. That's kind of the Gen X buyers.
Sure.
And I'm absolutely making generalizations here, and I understand that. But just for the argument's sake.
Yep.
But now we have the millennials that are in the buying decisions in that category, and they want to know what problems you can solve for them. They're not as worried about are you the biggest or the best or the smallest, and what's your price point. They want to know, are you going to solve my problem, and then stand behind what that is. And so storytelling is a way for us to say, this is what we do. This is how we solve your problems. And let me tell you a couple of customers and what they say about our products too. So you have to tell them the story of how you solve the problem instead of just features and benefits or price wars or anything like that. So you have to change with your audience.
So I like the storytelling and marketing kind of go hand in hand. I mean, I think for an entrepreneur that is listening, that's results oriented, we talk about DISC a ton. And, for the high D person, that's like, my whole goal for marketing, and I oversimplify it for myself, Lisa, but I say, hey, marketing gets the phone to ring, and then from there, that's where I jump in as a sales trainer, or you have sales manager, whatever you have, and that's an oversimplification for me, but how does, that's kind of what your goal is for somebody that's not a client necessarily to have an action to do something. I mean, what do you define marketing as? If I was a new client coming to you and asking you, some of the basics, where do you start with people?
Right. And so you're right. So the marketing is getting people to the brand awareness and get them to come in to call you. And then that's where sales takes over, right?
Yep.
That's the two distinguishing aspects of it. And so we've had this conversation many times, Dave, but at the same time, you have to get them to play in the same space.
Mm-hmm.
And so marketing, there's the whole left, right brain thing, right? You've got the one side of the brain is all about the creativity and the emotional aspect. And then you've got the other side of the brain that's the logical, fact-driven part. So salespeople are typically more of the logical people who just like they've got a quota, they know they need to do, they know the facts. But the salespeople know the clients. Marketing people don't know the clients always.
Sure.
They know what they've been taught as far as marketing is concerned, like you should do this and use these colors, and there's a way to implement it as far as campaigns. But the salespeople understand what the clients want to hear. And so using my sales experience from a lifetime ago and in combination with the marketing, you get both sides. It's like, is the marketing message going to be relatable to the client? Because if it looks pretty and it says nothing, it's a huge waste of time and money. So it helps to have the sales aspect to say, this is what my clients are looking for, and then team up with the marketing people to create a campaign and create a message that is relatable to the clients, just for the clients to go, yeah, I need you, and what's your phone number?
So, and one of the things I think, which is what you brought up, which I want to kind of ask you about is, understanding your ideal client is so important, and me as an entrepreneur, me as a business owner, I own multiple businesses in my life, and I knew in each segment of my business what my ideal, client looked like. So for us, we would name 3, 4, 5 things and be able to, identify that. But in your case, I knew it from a sales perspective. How does that translate over into your space? Like you said, you might not know my ideal client. Do you then kind of investigate that a lot with your clients to find out who that ideal client is, or do you already know that going in a lot of times?
No, I don't always know that going in. I mean, you can generalize and try to figure that out, but honestly, what I find with most of my clients is they don't even know who their ideal client is. They think they know who it is, but then by asking them a series of questions, but actually literally pulling the answers out of them sometimes because they've never actually thought about it is where we really define it. And when I mean define it, I'm talking about not just the demographics of what region are they in, what size company do they have, all those kinds of things. But it's also things like mindset. It's like, is the person that you're selling to actually going to, when things like pay the bill on time, or if you're a consultant, are they going to implement what you say?
Sure.
Or are they going to just, hey, you didn't help me because, like, it's kind of like going to physical therapy and then having therapy to do at home. You don't do the therapy, then you go back to therapist and saying you're not doing your job. It's like, okay, well, there's homework to do here. So that's where I get into the helping my clients understand who their ideal client is.
Okay.
Is because, and then it goes beyond that as to, well, if that works for this industry, how come you're not applying it to this industry? So it's not even just defining the client as to like what kind would buy the product or use your services. It's understanding the people within that industry or in that demographic that are the ideal clients. Sometimes people are just order takers. I don't really care what the mindset is of the person. Well, that's one company. But you have to think about these other things as well.
So I want to dig down a little bit if we can on that, Lisa, because I'm thinking there's probably, an entrepreneur or two listening right now, and they think marketing, but then they think, I don't need that, it's fluff. I've heard a lot of things, which I'm sure you've heard as well. But, so let's talk in real, like specifics for some ideal questions that you would ask to really unpack that ideal client. Because I think without, you know, proving your worth to somebody, me proving my worth to somebody, anytime we come into a company, that's like the first thing people want to know is, you know, what are you going to add value? What's this going to look like? So if you're sitting with somebody, let's use me, you know, we're sitting here talking and you have some questions about my ideal client. What is that? What are some specific questions that an entrepreneur might be driving, that we might, you know, driving right now down the road, listening to this, that we can help him or her, you know, kind of get started in this path?
So there's always two different clients, right? There's that client that you love working with and you wish you had a machine to generate another 20,000 of them. And
Okay.
then you have the client who you never want to work with again. And so by taking past experiences of clients that you loved working with and then breaking that down,
Okay.
like what was it about that client that you really liked working with?
Okay.
What was it about them that was really helpful? And then figuring out what the demographics are of that client, then also figuring out, obviously, like I said, the mindset of that client, you know, what made it such a successful relationship, and then try to find more of those.
Okay.
Because when you start in a business, sometimes it's just revenue is revenue, right? I'm taking any client who's going to pay me because I'm starting my business and I need to figure this out.
Exactly. Yep.
Perfect, because you learn those two things. What is the client I want to duplicate, or what's the client that I'm going to try to avoid?
Mm-hmm.
And then it also goes into the fact of like, where do they hang out? That's a whole nother topic of how do you find more of those clients. So I would love to say that there's a specific question
Okay.
that you can ask, but it's more of a think of your best client and then how do you find more of those? But also think of your worst client and think of those too, because then you know what pitfalls to avoid.
And I think so. What I like what you just said. So I'm thinking, you know, for if I'm thinking about this for the first time, I envision an iceberg, and on the questions and the comments are all above the water, but I want to dig deeper and get in, you know, underneath. So when you say, look at your ideal client and then try and find out, you know, what you like about them. Like you said, though, they pay on time, they're nice to me, whatever. There's things like that. We need to dig deeper than that. How do you get people to do that? Because I know my client at a surface level, but how do I get to know them better? How do I get to understand them and their business better? What are your suggestions there?
Ask them how they measure results. How do you
Okay.
measure results? You're measuring it on a weekly basis, a monthly, quarterly, yearly, and ask them what their end goal is for the business. Because sometimes, you know, what I uncover is that, you know, I have one client who just recently said, well, I have these 3 parts of my business, and within 2 years, I want to sell this part. Well, that changes things, right?
Right.
That changes the strategy you have for the 2 companies he wants to hold on to, and
Mm-hmm.
it changes the strategy of what we want to do with the 3rd company that they want to sell. And so it's the whole how do you measure results is a great way of figuring that out, because in marketing, it's the long game, right? This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. Marketing is not I did a couple posts, I had a couple likes, woohoo, I'm famous. It's more what do you do consistently over time to get your name out there, to get the brand recognition out there, and then what do you do in the meantime to build that trust with your audience? So that the question of how do you measure results is a good way for them to determine of, like, I just want this one project short term and then just be done with it. And that would actually apply to anything. So whether they're buying a product, if it's a disposable product like a pen or something along those lines,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's something they're going to keep long term, if it's a big product like a machine that they're going to spend $25,000 on and they're going to keep for a 20-year period,
Sure.
then there's different conversations. But how do they measure results is a good way to determine if they're an ideal client or not.
So you had me until you said consistent and over time, because in my personality profile, it says, I said this before, I don't care if people know it, it's just me, so it's not bad, but it says I get bored easy.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to find things to kind of recalibrate, to re-energize, you know, on a pretty consistent basis. So if you're talking to that person, which I'm sure there's people listening that have that same tendency, consistent and over time, like they fight that. There's like there's conflict there, because I want to be able to just do it once. I want the best post in the world, Lisa. I want 100,000 people to like it. I want people to just be drooling over what I said. And then I want to just, live off that royalty, right? I mean, that just is for some people, that's like really a high priority. I know in my heart that that's not accurate, but I also in my head, I'm thinking, man, this consistency thing, I don't know if I have the tenacity. I don't know if I have the stick-to-itiveness, whatever it is. How do you help people with that? I mean, that's got to be a real tough spot for somebody to be in.
Yeah, well, I actually have that I get bored easily thing, which is why I love marketing, is because it's always changing and always diversifying. So, but you're a perfect example of that, right? You have this pandemic and you can't go do your trainings and you do this awesome in-person stuff. Well, that halted. So you found a different medium, right? But at the same time, two interviews are the same. So you actually found a way for your marketing to keep going, but it also satisfies the fact that it's never the same each time.
Right.
You're always having different conversations with people.
Right.
And yet you're getting the message out there. It's still consistent, and it's still going to be it's longevity. By doing a podcast, it lives in infinity. I don't know what's the word I'm looking
and beyond.
for. Like it's always going to be there now. So you're the perfect example of doing that. You find a way to get that message out. And just because I say it's consistency over time doesn't mean it's the same message over time.
Sure. Wow.
Right?
Yep. No, and that makes complete sense. And I can say this, I won't say who it is, but somebody famous I wanted on my podcast, and they said, "Oh, I'd love to be on there, but we need to have at least X number of episodes first." So that's kind of like a little bit of not a little bit, but a lot of bit of a driver for me to continue, to do that. So whatever drives people, at the end of the day, it is what it is. I just know that the consistency part is hard for a lot of people, that, I have to post 3 times a week on LinkedIn, or 2 videos, or one. I mean, it's just like, wow, it's really challenging. So I'm just curious, do you come alongside people a lot of times and help them, encourage them, sometimes do it for them? Where does your, company take you in that situation?
I'm mostly on the front end. I do go with people as well, but mostly I'm on the front end of like the idea, the generation, the strategy, the setting that up. The loveliness about all of this is that you don't have to do it alone. There's a massive community out there to help you. It's just like saying, you might not want to do it over a long period of time and posting 3 times a week. So take 2 days out of your month and record 10 videos. And do create a bunch of posts. And people sometimes they're like, well, I'm not a creative person. Well, then you said you have to be the creative. It just has to be honest, and it has to be authentic.
Right.
Not everybody agrees with the way I approach marketing. I'm okay with that. I'm not looking to work with those people, but you need to be authentic and be honest and just put something out there. You don't have to spend 20 hours a week on your social media. You could do it in chunks. I have a friend who she literally brings 5 or 6 outfits with her. She does 15 posts.
Sure.
Just change the screen. Her and her assistant do that, and then the assistant goes through and cuts it all out. Yep. You don't have to do it alone. There's so many out there, virtual assistants out there, and people who you just send the raw stuff to, and they can create it into something amazing. And I know how that works.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I couldn't do this without my producer, Katie. So thank you, Katie, again, for all that you do. And I think what I try and help my clients with is understand what your strengths are. And we all have heard all this before. So I rarely tell anybody anything they haven't heard. I just look to find my strengths and then just build on those. My weaknesses are producing a show. My weaknesses are the sound bites, the marketing of it. Those are pieces that, you know, if I had to do the whole thing, I would not do it. So it's
Right.
like what you just said, you know, you find people that are good at what they do. Like you come alongside somebody at the front, get the idea generated, get the juices flowing, get the project momentum moving forward, and then hopefully there's somebody that, you know, can do the day-to-day long term so that you can jump into the next, you know, exciting opportunity.
And it's not a one and done. You can recycle your content. Just because you post it once doesn't mean that everybody in the world saw it, right? You
Sure.
can repost something and say, hey, I was thinking about this and I remembered a post that I did. I'm just reposting it again because, and then you can add a little bit of edit to it,
Gotcha.
and you're
Okay.
not recreating the wheel. You don't have to always come up with brand new content. You can use old content over again. There's absolutely zero, nothing wrong with that, because especially in social media, not everybody is online all the time. So they may not see something that you've already posted unless they specifically go to your page and look for your past posts.
Sure.
But then you can repost it. There's no rule against that at all.
Good. Well, that's good because I love repurposing content. I think it makes a ton of sense. You know, a lot of people do it. And I at the beginning, I was thinking to myself that oh my gosh, how am I going to keep all this fresh and always have some new and great idea? And then you start looking around and realizing that, you know, it might be a slant to it that's a little bit different, but, you know, sales, leadership, there's a lot of things that I work with on a regular basis that seem to just be, there's not a lot of change. You know, there can be nuances here or there, but, you know, from a sales perspective, you have somebody that wants to buy something from you. Hopefully you have a good product. I mean, there's certain, you know, chunks to it, but at the end of the day, it kind of is the same. So, you know, which is a great transition for me to ask you, because you hinted at your sales career in your past life, you said. So, you know, how does sales for you and marketing kind of, you know, talk to each other? How do they work in, you know, with your clients currently?
So I always tell my clients that whole forest through the trees, you can't see the forest because of all the trees.
Okay.
Sometimes you get so close to your product and your service, you don't see it from any other perspective, but your own perspective of how to deliver it. And so coming from the outside, not having, you know, working with clients, I don't know their industry really well and I don't know their product super well, is actually a benefit, because what happens is I can see it from the buyer's perspective. I can see it from the other side. And I have seen so many pieces out there that look awesome, but they say nothing. Like they don't tell the prospective client anything about the company or the product. They don't answer any questions. And so, and a lot of people like yourself, especially with all the disc you do and the PI, and there's so much to it that, you know, you and I may understand the acronyms that we can talk back and forth, but a lot of people out there don't understand what that means. If you say disc, they're probably thinking of a Frisbee
Right.
or
Yep.
a disc you would buy, right? They don't understand the personality profiling that's behind it.
Right.
And so sitting back and looking at it from a sales perspective, from a client perspective, and simplifying the message
Sure.
is the best way to take my sales experience and apply it into marketing. It doesn't have to sound super confident, and it doesn't have to be this, look at how smart I am marketing. It just has to be like, again, tell a story. How do I solve your problem? And this is why clients use us. And these are some of the benefits our clients have seen by using my product, my service, or whatever the case might be. So having that sales experience, I've tried to sell through fluffy stuff from my corporate companies, and it didn't say anything. So it's like, it was like a big, huge piece of wasted product.
So, and I think just that's great stuff, that there is a lot of marketing out there that doesn't say anything,
Mhm.
you know. And so the concept, I guess, is if I'm a entrepreneur and I own a business or whatever, and I have a message that I want to get out, I have to really kind of work at getting that message out. So in your case, you really help people get that message out in a way that other people are really going to understand that message, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I sat in a room with two technicians a week ago with one of my clients, and they gave me all of their technical things of what they did and why it was a good service for the clients. And I made it to sound like what the prospect or the client would actually like understand. So they use this big technical term for a test. And like, well, what did that test do? They said, well, it showed us this. So then I put that this is what it showed us in there. I didn't use big technical terms because quite honestly, the client doesn't care how you did it, just get me the results. And so really taking those people who are extremely intelligent and very passionate about what they do and amazing, amazing people, entrepreneurs, and making the message sound as if, and this is going to sound kind of silly, but like an actual human being is saying it instead of the expert. You know, taking it from that expert level down to a more like in plain English kind of a concept.
And that lines really up well with how I think about things when I'm out speaking, when I'm out, doing that for my company. I think about doing it at about a 6th grade level. And it's not because of the audience, it's because of me. I mean, that's about at the level where I really feel that I can learn, and it doesn't have to be complicated. I mean, if we're doing listening skills training or communication skills training, it doesn't have to be complicated. And I get people on a pretty regular basis that say, I had one guy came up to me after the 10 tips to better communicate training. He comes up to me, I don't know what state I was in. And he says, I got to tell you, I didn't learn anything. And I'm like, I'm telling you, that's not the goal here. The goal is, out of these 10 things, how many are you doing?
Right.
One of them simply is don't interrupt. I mean, how many of us struggle with that simple two little words, right? And so it's a lot of this isn't necessarily rocket science. So you're taking a concept and trying to simplify it. So because the buyer typically doesn't need to know or want to know, unless they're a engineer, a high C on the disc, where they're very factual people. There are people that need to know that, but the vast majority of people don't really need to know that. And I think that's where features and benefits really kind of got lost, because, people didn't understand a feature. If you're just selling a feature and not explaining what that benefit is, then you're really in a tough spot. So how do you take a concept that's complicated and simplify it so that a novice like me, if it's a retail product or a consumer product, if it's a novice like me, can understand it enough to actually buy into it?
So forget about the features and just sell the benefits. I'm sure you've heard that from other marketing people. It's not a new concept. It's not an original concept of mine, but that's what storytelling is. It's the forget talking about the features and let's just talk about the benefits of how that's going to help you.
Okay.
So one of the 10 tips that you talk about also is listen to learn, not to respond. Because if you're only listening to respond, you're only thinking about your thoughts. You're not thinking about what the actual person is actually saying.
Right.
What you want to say may have zero relevance as to what they need to hear from what your product is. And so it's that twofold of talk about the benefits, because when you're doing the work, you're thinking about the features, right? How do I do it? Right. What am I doing? You're not talking about the end results for the client. The client wants to know, what are the end results? The client wants to know, how is this going to make my life easier? How is this going to make my people's life easier? And then obviously ROI is always in there, but it's about listening to what the client is saying, because sometimes the client will say something that triggers something else that has nothing to do with what you thought you were there in the first place.
And I think
because sometimes the client thinks that they understand their target audience when they don't. Sometimes the client thinks they know that they need, when actually it's actually something else.
Right. Wow. And I don't hear a lot of people say sell the benefit. I think by default, business, at least in the US, that's my main, world that I play in, is people are feature dumping. I mean, salespeople think the more they know about the product, the more they're going to be able to sell. So they know every color, they know everything about it, they know every size, they know every little nuance about that product. And I've secret shopped some. I've sat with people and coached them, but boy, it's so easy, Lisa, to just dump, right? Just talk and talk and talk, and I think so in your concept of, less is more, so to speak. I mean, if you have a simple message in marketing, but then you have a complex message in sales, I think that's going to be a disconnect for people. So how do you know your client's sales process, so to speak, so that you can align your marketing with that sales process?
So when I do a discovery session with a prospect or a new client, a lot of it is walk me through your sales process.
Okay.
That's the question that I have. And because everybody's sales is different, right? It could be an instant thing. It takes a week, a month, a year, even sometimes years for somebody, for the bigger ticket stuff,
Sure. Okay.
for them to sell. And what does that process look like? So a lot of the time in that first hour conversation, that discovery session, I do very little talking. I ask a lot of questions. And so we could have the same industry, but different selling styles and different you could have, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but if you could have the same industry, but the two companies approach the sales completely different.
Okay.
Some people are just order takers and not building relationships.
Yep.
And some people are like, 90% of my business is reselling to existing clients. And one client is just spinning their wheels because they're constantly looking for new clients because they're selling at the lowest price.
Sure.
Not doing follow-up. They're not, standing by their product. So it depends upon how you approach your client relationship, to be quite honest with you.
And I see them so much in life. People think sales and marketing conflict with each other. And the closer that they work in unison with each other, the more success that company is going to have. Mm-hmm. Again, in my simple terms, marketing gets the phone to ring and then sales takes it from there. I know they're both way more complicated, but that just, again, if you're trying to explain to a sixth grader what's going on at this company and you say, hey, this guy here, he makes the phone ring, and then this guy here or this girl here picks it up, and once it rings, it's kind of, you build off of that, right? And it obviously gets more and more, detailed from there. But I think if I'm hearing you, your sales experience is actually helping you with your marketing for your clients because of you already understand that side of it.
Right. There's no like and trust, right? Everybody's heard that. No, like, trust.
Yep.
So the no and the like is a lot of marketing. People have to know you exist. They have to like what you say, and then to take it from the like to the trust, that's sales. Because once they trust you, they'll buy from you. So as opposed to sales and marketing, and buying is emotional. I don't care if you're B2B or B2C. It's an emotional process. Yeah. You're letting go of something to get something back. You're letting go of money to get a product or a service back. And there's something that's emotionally tied to it. So the marketing can help build the trust based on what you're saying and just telling the stories through all of your marketing. So if you've ever been one of those people who you had basically same price, same type of a product, you picked one over the other. You don't know why, yeah, but you went with that one because it was like that gut feeling. That's that emotional selling aspect of it. Whether it was the salesperson you trusted more. I've actually paid more for a product because I like the salesperson. I trusted the company more than I like something else. Yep. Because I knew that if I had a question, they'd answer my question. Sure. And so when you do that sales aspect, that know, like, trust, the trust part is the selling part, because people are giving you something and trusting you that whatever they got back, whether it's a product or a service, is going to work for them. It's going to solve their problem. Yeah, that's awesome. And you uncovered something that I love to talk about, and it's that emotional part, because how I explain it in my sales training is people buy emotionally Mhm.
but they make decisions intellectually. And I'm a perfect example because, as I told you in prep for this, and we buy this 2020 brand new Jeep this year. And it was a purely emotional decision because I'm envisioning driving with the doors off, driving with the windows off, driving with the roof off, 90 degrees, just out in some back road, and it's purely an emotional decision, right? Then
Yep.
it comes to looking at the price tag, and then it comes to the practicality, and then it comes to this intellect. And now I'm starting to rationalize, well, I need a car anyway. It's going to be good in the snow. I mean, you just start doing this, and we're human, right? And which is totally cool, right? But if we as sales professionals and marketing professionals, if we understand that little piece, you're going to appeal to the emotional side. You're also going to appeal to the intellectual side at the marketing side and at the sales side, because if you miss one or the other, you will
Mhm.
not have success. Because if that person that sold the Jeep to me was purely talking emotional or purely talking intellectual, I would not have bought that Jeep, because I wanted this for years. I mean, I got a little one, a remote control from my wife, just, one year, just as because I always said I wanted a Jeep, and we got license plates that said finally. So that kind of was cool that he
Oh,
really
cool.
did that. Yeah. But I think when you think about the ideal prospect, ideal client, candidate, whatever, at the end of the day, most people have intellect and emotion in their decision-making process. So from a marketing perspective, Lisa, how do you tap into both of those and do it in a way where it doesn't look really clunky? Like, okay, chapter 1 and then chapter 2, how do you mix those two together? That's always been my challenge.
Well, so sometimes the negative emotion is what gets their attention, but it's the positive emotion that makes the sale.
Okay.
So let's take security systems.
Okay.
So you're going to buy a home security system, and they start with the people breaking the window and opening the door, right, on the commercials. And then you got the guy in the black mask coming in, and you got the dogs in the corners all scared, right, and the kids sleeping upstairs, right?
Yep.
That's what they start those commercials.
Right. Yep.
Then all of a sudden the security company comes in, and the kid is sleeping peacefully, and the dog is like laying there on by the fireplace, and
Sure.
it's all good, right? So it's
Yep.
the emotion, the negative emotion kind of grabs the attention.
Gotcha.
And then the positive emotion is the one that kind of makes the sale. It's
Okay.
like, so that's how it happens. Now that's just one example of a bajillion that I could probably give,
Sure.
depending upon the industry. But you never want to cross that line to the point where they're so scared they're afraid they'll never call you, right?
Right.
You
Sure.
got to get just to that point, and then switch it to the positive emotion.
Yep.
And it's not going to work for every industry. It's not. In marketing, I'm
Yeah.
not going to scare you enough that you have to call me. But at the same time, it's an example of how you use emotion to get your marketing message across.
Sure. And it's so funny if you go to the doctor and the guy looks at an x-ray, looks at a test result, or she's looking at this, whatever. If you never hear, this isn't good, I mean, that would just totally just destroy somebody if they're looking at something and going, oh, this is not good, right? I mean, that's I think marketing right there, is just understanding, this is interesting, is different than this isn't good, right? I mean, and so just these little course corrections through that. So I appreciate when I find somebody like you that understands the sales side and the marketing side, because I've worked with, firms in the past where they didn't really understand the sales piece, and they really weren't that interested in it. It was just a splash of marketing, a splash of color, and where that went or where it landed, they weren't really that interested in it because they had done their job. whatever their job was to get the message out or whatever. So do you rely on your sales experience on a pretty regular basis from that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I have one client who I wanted their entire team, even the guys in the manufacturing plant, to come in and have a conversation with the marketing aspect of it.
Okay.
And the CEO thought I was kind of crazy, right? So I said, these guys are working on your product every single day and making sure that the quality is high enough to send it out to your clients. You never know when the next really great idea is going to be coming from marketing. They're standing there all day looking at these products. You need to come in and do that. So it's not even just sales and marketing, but pulling in the entire team as to like what that looks like. So, and the other thing that does is it also gives the marketing people an idea of how the product is made to help tell the story. So there's an organization that before you can get on the leadership team, you have to work in every one of the departments for a week or a month or something. I don't remember the number is. So you understand the entire process.
Sure.
Or you can come in there and come and say, I'm a leader of this company because just because I understand operations doesn't make me a great COO.
Right.
What helps me make me be a great COO is because I've been on the floor or I've been out doing those things. And the best thing you could do for your company is actually let your marketing team come with on sales calls, both on prospect calls and on client calls, because they'll actually see what that looks like and how hard sales really is and what the challenges are that they have. And that it'll help the marketing people see a different perspective.
Well, the hair just raised on the back of my neck because I thought, the worst thing, I'm a sales guy at heart, right? So the worst thing the salesperson wants is anyone else tampering, touching, getting within 100 miles of that prospect. Stay away. Don't talk. If you're going to be
every day, I'm saying pick one.
Well, don't say anything though. If you're going to show up, just sit there and look pretty, because you start talking and it's just like, oh my gosh, right? I have a process.
You have to set the ground rules. You're right. You set the ground rules, and you introduce them like, this is our marketing person. They're here to learn more about the process, and then you get the permission from the client first, the prospect first. Like, no, there's a process to it, but I'm telling you that the end result is very beneficial. But I'm not saying take your marketing people out on all your sales calls, because they're not that right-brained. Yeah. I don't remember which one it is anymore.
Yeah, no, it's just different. And again, we try and tell people as often as possible, nobody's better or worse. Sales aren't better than marketing. Marketing's not better than sales. Each individual has a strength and a talent that we love to tap into. And so it's just kind of when you cross over, if you have, somebody that answers the phone at that same doctor's office, you don't have them, diagnosing anybody, because training is different. Just like you wouldn't want the doctor to schedule anything, run any. They're just, you just don't have it that way. So everybody.
You really want them in the computer system.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Same with me though, boy. If I could figure out a way to not have to be in there, it's crazy how I'm shocked at how well these podcast interviews go, Lisa, because there's so many things that could go wrong. So knock on wood, things have gone well so far. Couple other things I want to touch on before we come in for a landing today. You corrected me, rightly so, before we got on, because I said, I thought you were in a rebrand, and then you kind of used the word refresh, which I liked that. So for somebody that maybe is, living in a 20-year-old company, they really haven't done much, in that 20 years as far as, a refresh type thing. What's in your words, what's the difference between the rebrand and the refresh that, that went on for you at Rebel Grow Marketing?
So a rebrand would be you're changing the name of the company.
Okay.
Or you've, like, let's say two companies have merged and you're trying to create a third name for the company.
Sure. Okay.
So, one company doesn't think, oh, now this company owns it. It's like a rebranding into something else. Another way you would rebrand is if you changed your products completely, and your company name doesn't fit what you do anymore. it's morphed into something different.
Okay.
So the refresh that I'm doing, the reason I'm doing it is that for about a year now, yes, a year, I've been thinking about updating my website.
Okay.
The problem is that I didn't know what I wanted to say. And it's very stale. And it's very hard for a marketing person to have bad marketing. It's kind of like a landscaper that has really a bad, front yard that's out of control. You want to hire somebody who understands their own marketing. And so what happened was there was something missing, and I knew there was something missing. So I reached out to my network, and somebody said something to me that kind of hit me between the eyes, that whole, I probably should have thought of this myself. But they said, where are you? And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, well, you're Rebel Girl Marketing, right? And they're like, I go, yeah. Where are you? And I'm nowhere in my own marketing, which is kind of funny because when I started the company, I didn't know what it was going to look like, right? You start with a concept, an idea, and you just both feet into the deep end, let's see what happens.
Yep.
And then over the course of the past 2.5 years, I realized that Rebel Girl Marketing is just that. It's just me. And it's not going to morph into this big agency or anything like that. I've built it to help small businesses and to keep costs down. It is going to be just me. Sure. And then I pull in the expert resources when I need to from different areas.
Sure. Okay.
So what I did was I realized that being that I'm missing out of my own marketing, I'm doing a refresh. So tomorrow I have a 7-hour photo session with a rebrand expert photographer out of Madison, Miriam. She's brilliant. She did another person's refresh, and I love everything that she did. And so I've decided that going back to who you want to and who you don't want to work for, we talked about that earlier. Yeah. I realized the marketing I do want to do and the marketing that I don't want to do.
Okay.
Where my strengths are, right? You have to go with your strengths. And so that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the strategy aspect, because that's really where that's where I just get really excited for a company. And so the refresh is just saying, what does Rebel Girl look like today? And does my marketing reflect that? And honestly, my marketing doesn't. And so I'm doing a refresh on my marketing, and I'm putting myself into my own company, which sounds kind of silly. But personal brand it's where it's at. You have to make sure that people understand who you are. Again, it goes from that know to trust.
Yeah.
People have to trust what you have to say. And that happens to be where, if you're a marketing consultant, you should have good marketing.
Well, and that's right? Where it's, and that makes complete sense. I mean, as a business coach for myself, I realize that I'll never by choice get to be where there's more people in this than just me. I mean, there's people that help me, produce shows and do all of the ancillary work. But as far as other coaches, I don't know how to do it, and I don't really want to, because people buy me, they buy what I'm doing. It would be really hard. And I appreciate that about you, because it'd be really hard for me to get to know you. And then, as a prospect, I mean, we've done work together, so I'm already a client of yours. If we did, if you were trying to do, get some work from me, and we establish a relationship, and then I go, yeah, you know what, I want to move forward. And then you're like, great, I'm going to introduce you to Joe or Joanne, and then they're going to take over. It's like, wait a minute here. I trust you. I know you. So that, for me personally, is just the way I do it. I don't think it's right or wrong, good or bad, but I appreciate that about you as well.
And those small businesses that I work with, they don't have a big budget for me to have a large staff, or if they had that, they would go to an agency that had that. But most of the companies that I work with, they know they need marketing, they don't know where to start, and so I help them do that. And then once we get to a point where they no longer need me, I mean, I tell the client, the prospect, eventually you're going to want to fire me because I've done my job.
Right.
If I haven't done my job and I'm here for longer than, X amount of months, then I didn't do my job. So I'm more of a teach a man to fish, teach a man to market kind of a thing than I am a long-term solution for any one organization. But if it turns out that it's a big enough project and you want to go move to an agency kind of a concept, I can introduce you to a multitude of so many fantastic agencies in the Milwaukee area. So many amazing people.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's interesting because in your bio you said that you help people that don't know where to start. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs in today's world are going to even, they don't want to even admit that, but there's a lot of people that don't know where to start from a marketing perspective. So as we put the wheels out for our landing, I have a couple more questions for you, but you know, there's all these platforms out there today. There's all these things vying for my marketing time, right? To get my message out there, LinkedIn, Facebook, you know, print, TV, radio, they're just like everywhere. I mean, how does somebody, you know, I get overwhelmed at times thinking about, you know, oh, I should be on this, I should be, you know, I should on myself all the time, you know, all these should type things. But, you know, what's your advice for people that feel like they have to be on every platform, and then they kind of stall out and don't even do one? I mean, you know, that's what I see. And I'm just curious, what's your wisdom for people listening that maybe aren't on anything, maybe want to be on more platforms? How do you work through that with entrepreneurs typically, Lisa?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I just had that conversation this morning with somebody, and it's the proverbial, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And
Sure.
it's the same
Yep.
thing. If I want to lose 25 pounds, I'm not going to, completely cut out everything in my diet and work out for 24 hours. And then, then you get burned out, right? So it's small steps. Start where finding out what that ideal client is. When you look at that ideal client and you define who that is, where did you find them? And then find out where they hang out and go there. If they're not on Facebook, don't go on Facebook. If they're not on LinkedIn, don't spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's important because when the people research you, you need to have that kind of a profile. Yeah. But don't spend all your money there. If the people are at expos, whenever we start having expos again, go there, right? You go where your client is. You don't have to be everywhere, because then you're going to get burnout. You're going to spend way too much time and money. And you're not going to actually do the work on your business. Yeah. So figure out where that ideal client is, figure out who they are, figure out where they hang out, and then go there.
Well, and I think it's so interesting because, and I was trying to find the statistic while you were talking, and it's approximately between 60 and 70% of people that want to learn more about a company. If you call me and leave me a voicemail, let's say, or you email me something, or you direct mail something to me, it's 60 to 70% of the people that want to learn more about that. If I'm interested, my next step is going to be LinkedIn. And that's where I think so many people, like you said, they check out where you are on LinkedIn. And when we had Wayne Breitbarth on, he was the first guy on my show, and he just gave a ton of, great insight on LinkedIn, and I couldn't write notes fast enough, and had to re-listen to the show, and it was just fantastic.
I have this book right here.
Oh my gosh, it's just like fantastic, and it's so like, you don't know what you don't know. So I have all these blind spots when it comes to my LinkedIn profile. So, but
wait, let's go back though, Dave.
Yeah.
That's where you go back to find somebody to help you.
Right.
You find that small marketing company who does social media, and then just does social media, if that's where you want to go.
Correct.
And then let them help you.
Yep. Absolutely.
I think Pat Miller talks about the fact that, if you have an hourly rate of X, and if you're spending too many hours doing the things that you don't want to do because you're not good at it, go back to being your expertise at getting X an hour, and then give a little bit of that money to the person who is the expert in social media, or is the expert in a web design, or whatever that case might be, and let them do that for you. And then you go back to doing what you love.
Right. Boy, when I first started Positive Polarity 8 or 9 years ago now, I mean, I did everything myself, because I just did, I didn't have any reason not to, but I couldn't wait for the day to hire somebody to do the invoicing. And I couldn't wait for the day to hire somebody to do the social media, right? It was just like so freeing. And I run into so many people that they just have that, I can't let go mentality. but yet then they're struggling to do anything because they're just in hands in every single, they got 25 hats that they wear at the company. And I get it day one, okay, but year 2, year 3, it's like, yeah, no, you need to like divest yourself of some of that. To Pat Miller's point, it was a great podcast. And he was like, do what you love to do and let everyone else do the other stuff. I mean, just boiled down. It was like, man, that's really freeing. It was really good to hear that.
And you probably wouldn't do it well anyway. Like me, it's the finance. I have literally never done my own taxes because the thought of like filling out one of those forms puts me into paralysis. Right? And so you just find somebody to do it for you because that's their job. I would probably miss a bunch of deductions, right? Because I would just want to get it over with.
Right.
And so instead of doing it halfway, find somebody who's going to do it well and then pay them. That's why I hired a photographer. Do I own a camera? Yeah. Do I know how to use it? Yes. Yeah. But at the same time, you hire somebody. I'm a marketing consultant that's hiring marketing people to help me rebuild to refresh my brand because I'm not an expert photographer. Can I take a picture?
A one-woman photo shoot.
Probably
not. There you are, just having, I'm sorry. I was just thinking there's the tripod and a camera and a delay and you quick push the button and then you quick run over and try and do, yeah. When I did my photo shoot, it was awesome. She did such a great job and I have like 100 pictures. I'm like, what am I going to do with these? She said, trust me, you'll use them, so it's so cool. So, hey, 2 more questions. I'm going to let you go. What is Lisa's tip of the week for anybody listening that wants to take away one piece, either something you shared or something you didn't? What's a great Rebel Girl marketing tip of the week?
Be authentic in your messaging.
Cool.
You don't have to sound esoteric. You don't have to be the smartest person that will actually do you nothing but hurt you. Just be yourself. There are several people that are a little on the edge. Yeah. We need to pull a little bit back because they're not relating to everybody, but that's their point, is that they don't have to relate to everybody. They have an audience and they know how to say their message, and you don't have to relate to everybody. Just be yourself in your messaging.
Awesome.
It's going to be transparent otherwise.
Cool. Good stuff. So one last thing, what's one thing that most people don't know about you that you feel comfortable sharing?
I know how to milk cows.
Oh my gosh. With like by hand or with the machine?
All of it. Yep.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
I wasn't raised on a dairy farm, but that's how you earned money in my small town, Western Wisconsin, is you worked on the dairy farms.
Okay.
And so, yes, I know more about milking cows than I ever wanted to know in my lifetime. I'm pretty sure that's how my mother got me to go to college and leave my small town, is by making me work so hard on those. You will never appreciate a farmer more than actually spending 3 months in the summer in 90-degree weather throwing hay and milking cows.
Wow, that is awesome. Wow, well, thanks for sharing that. So if anyone's listening, want to learn more about milking cows, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you, Lisa?
So the best way to get in contact with me would probably be twofold. Okay. LinkedIn would be a really great way. Just connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Otherwise, email would be great. I can't always get to the phone because I'm with clients, but if you send me an email, I will always get back to you. So that's Lisa at rebelgirlmarketing.com. It's pretty easy.
Okay. Lisa at rebelgirlmarketing.com or LinkedIn. Those are 2 awesome places. So this has gone by so fast. Thank you so much, Lisa, for letting us unpack some of these things. I'm excited to be able to hopefully soon get back out and about and get some in-person meetings going and get some in-person events. But until then, thank you for this, and look forward to seeing you out and about. And until next time, we will have somebody, not a Rebel probably, because this is the first Rebel that we've had officially. But thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thanks, Lisa, and we will chat again soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, and congratulations on such a great podcast.
Awesome. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.